As book collectors, we all have books that escaped us, ones that we didn't get when they were put out and we now wish that we did. One could call it regret. And in this episode of Erudite Magic, I'm going to be telling you about the books that I missed. But interestingly enough, along the way while I was developing this list, I realized that I have a lot to be grateful for. There are a ton of books in my library that I'm so glad that I found and acquired, and I thought that I might share those with you too. Plus, there are going to be some lessons that I've learned by comparing these two lists, and hopefully there are some takeaways for you. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's not waste any more time. At number 5 on my list of books that I wish I got but didn't is Absolute Magic by Darren Brown. Absolute Magic was Darren's second book that he put out specifically for magicians after Pure Effect. After a 20-year silence, he's put out another book, Notes from a Fellow Traveler, and I've reviewed that, so if you're interested in a book you can still get by Darren, check that out. Back to Absolute Magic. It's essentially a book of theory. How should you present effective magic and mentalism? And why is this book on my list? The reason is because Darren Brown has been such a big influence on me. I perform mentalism, and I think that he's at the top of his game as far as current performing mentalists. I'm sure that as a performer he's changed over time, and again, you can read his updated thoughts in Notes from a Fellow Traveler. But I'd still like to be able to go back and read what influenced early Darren Brown, the one that took on so many projects and became such a successful mentalist. Number 4 on the list of books I wish I had is Simply Harkey by David Harkey. I don't know much about David Harkey. I've had very little interaction with his material, except for a few isolated mentions in the Art of Astonishment trilogy. But when I was younger, I remember when this book came out, and I remember the buzz about it, the excitement about the variety of material, his creativity, and the fact that it felt like this was just something different. So one could say that this book is on my list for nostalgia's sake. What books are like that for you? What books are just there on your list because of nostalgia? Put those down in the comments below. At number 3 on the books I'd still like to acquire, I have The Mind and Magic of David Berglass. Now I have The Berglass Effect by Richard Kaufman, but it's a different style of book. This Mind and Magic book is highly sought after, very expensive, and covers the performance career of David Berglass, another respected mentalist, so you can see that there is a flavor to my list. Not all the books are mentalism, but certainly I like to know about some of the influential mentalists from the last century. Not having read the book, I have no idea whether I would find any performance pieces from the book, but I'm always interested to learn someone's life story and their iteration of the types of effects that they presented to an audience. Number 2 on my list is Lifesavers by Michael Weber. This one's probably another nostalgia pick for me. When this book came out, and it was all of this impromptu magic by someone that I still truly respect in the magic industry as a creative force and a great thinker about how we should present magic, I really wanted it, and at the time that it came out, I didn't have the money for it. As time went on, I just never ended up getting it, and now, while the book isn't completely out of reach, it is slightly more expensive than what I want to pay. I'm not really sure that I would use anything from the book, but I would be interested to read some of this impromptu magic. At number 1 on my list of books that I wish I had acquired but just didn't pull the trigger at the time is The Magic of Johnny Thompson. This 2-volume set was fairly expensive from the time it was released, and those prices have only skyrocketed since then. One of the other big regrets is that I never actually got to see Johnny perform live. I've only seen clips on YouTube or TV, and I think that he was such a great performer that I'd like to study more what he had to say. I understand that the books focus a lot on close-up card magic, although there are other things. It's just one of those sets that I hate that I missed out when it came out. So what are some themes that I saw in this first half here about books that I wish I had that I just don't? One is that it's pretty broad, but most of it has to do with creators and performers that I respect. There's something about their work that appeals to me. And I think that's the power of a mentor, which I've talked about before, and you could see that video here. Finding someone's work that inspires you, someone's work that resonates with you, that you could see yourself learning from this person, and then investing into that. Every one of the creators that I listed on this list, I have some kind of respect for. Even if I wouldn't use their magic, I'd like to support them and allow them to teach me, to feed into my magic life. Who are those people for you? If you're like me and you're always looking for a good deal on some of these books, then let me tell you about the sponsor of this week's episode, Don's Magic and Books. Don is a great place to look for these rare and out-of-print books because that's what he specializes in. He's a small business owner based out of Minnesota, and he absolutely loves books, which makes him a great fit for this channel. I'm pretty sure that Don has had all of these books in his inventory at one point or another, but if you're looking for something like this or a book that is out now, be sure to check out Don's website, and I'll put a link down in the description below to make it easier for you. The great news is, when you're shopping with Don, you don't have to worry about getting ripped off. He does his research to find out what these books have actually sold for, and then he typically comes off of that price just a little bit to make sure that you're getting a good deal. And he offers free shipping if you're in the United States and meet certain basic thresholds. I don't know what you're waiting for. I hope you'll check it out and shop with Don's Magic and Books this week. While I was contemplating this list that we've been talking about, these 5 books that I don't own, but I kind of wish that I did, I started looking around my library and thinking about how blessed I am that I do have some tremendous books that other people have not been able to get because they're now out of print. So I want to share some of those. 5 books I'm really glad that I own, and hopefully they come back into print at some point in the future so that you too can get a copy and learn from what they have to teach. Number 5 on this list of books that I'm grateful I got before they went out of print is Dear Mr. Fantasy. I've talked about this book on the channel a number of times, but this was very influential in my life because it was that bridge from beginning self-working card tricks to learning to do some sleight of hand and some more interesting card tricks with the offbeat timing that John Bannon is known for. It pushed me slightly out of my comfort zone, but was easy enough that it didn't feel like I was taking a giant leap into learning some real knuckle-busting sleight of hand. It also holds a spot near and dear to my heart because I still perform pieces from this book. I keep hearing rumors that it will be reprinted, and if you want to know when it is reprinted, then subscribe to my newsletter, the Erudite Magic Digest. You get an email once a week with me sharing some tips, tricks, news in the industry, and it's just a fun way to keep in touch. At number 4 on my list of books that I'm grateful to have is The Classic Collection, Volume 1 by Harry Lorraine. Another nostalgic pick for me. When I first got into magic books, I had some people that I was looking to for recommendations. I didn't have any Harry Lorraine books whatsoever, which as a close-up card guy at the time, this was a huge mistake, which was rectified when I bought the Classic Collection directly from Harry. If you don't already know what it is, it's a collection of some of his earlier works put into one gorgeous hardbound volume. It's got one of the quintessential classics of card magic, close-up card magic, and contains a number of tricks that are just an awesome shuffle deck in use, impromptu style of card magic that Harry Lorraine is known for. And I still perform some of those effects when someone hands me a pack of cards and says, "Show me a trick." Harry has passed away and the book is out of print in its physical format, but I understand you can still get some PDF copies from his website. But if you can get your hands on this any way possible, there's some great card magic to study. Number 3, Paramiracles by Ted Leslie. Anytime I have a chance to recommend this book to aspiring magicians, mentalists, people who aren't quite sure which camp they fall into, I always recommend this book. Ted was a German magician and mentalist, and I feel like he bridged those worlds really, really well. Ted didn't get caught up in these weird distinctions between mental magic and mentalism. He really just wanted to entertain his audiences and was commercially successful from what I understand. But more importantly, I loved all of the ideas that he had in this book. I have so many pages bookmarked because there are utilities like a 3-way out envelope, an envelope that automatically switches anything you want, a card or a piece of paper. In addition, he has a great newspaper headline prediction, a bunch of card tricks that are just absolutely mind-blowing and simple to do, various pieces of mentalism, and a dissertation on the center tear, which actually laid the foundation for me wanting to learn this technique, and it's one that I still use to this day. The book was published by Hermetic Press, which is now owned by Penguin Magic. I don't know whether they'll reprint this one. I haven't heard any rumors that it's in the works, but since they did reprint the Barry Richardson trilogy, there is hope. Continuing this theme of mentalism, my number 2 book is The Artful Mentalism of Bob Cassidy by H&R Books. If you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know that pound for pound, this book has influenced my approach to mentalism as much as any other out there. Bob Cassidy was a tremendous creator and one of the godfathers of modern mentalism. And if the book had only been one trick, the fourth dimensional telepathy, it would have already been worth it. That piece has been one of the closers in my show for many years, and it never fails to get an amazing reaction, in addition to dozens and dozens and dozens of other tricks. So if you're just getting into mentalism, I think that it has so much to offer. And the great news is I spoke to Charlie Randall, the R in H&R Books, and he told me that he plans to reprint this, hopefully in the next year. Again, if you want to be the first to know, subscribe to my newsletter, and I'll be sure to inform you when this starts to run on the presses. Number one on my list is actually a group of books, and it is Harry Lorraine's Apocalypse. This is a periodical that ran from the late 70s all the way to the early 2000s. As you can imagine, it covers a huge range of territory, and as a periodical, you're starting to see the evolution of magic over the 20 or so year period that it covers. So many wonderful authors got their start by publishing in Apocalypse, and those tricks sometimes later made it into their own books. So it has a lot of performable, wonderful material. Not only does it have magic tricks, there are articles and gossip, and you're just getting to see the history of magic as you learn magic tricks. These volumes are basically out of print. Occasionally you can find a few copies of the red volume for a reasonable price, and I recommend that if you can find it, don't hesitate to snatch it up. The yellow book, volumes 11 through 15, for whatever reason, tends to be the most difficult to obtain, and I managed to get my copy on eBay a number of years ago. But I really love having the complete set here for when I want to go find out an author's original publications or see one of the early versions of a trick that later made it into a book. When I looked over this list of books that I was appreciative that I did have that are now out of print, one of the themes that keeps coming up over and over again on this list is that they are useful. I learned tricks from these books, which made me think about all the books on my shelf that maybe I haven't learned a trick from. That doesn't make them bad books, but there are just certain topics, authors, types of magic that are going to resonate with you throughout the course of your magic journey. And I believe that those interests ebb and flow, which is what makes magic so interesting. You might be a card magician right now. You might not be 5 years from now. Like me, who switched from card magic to mentalism, I still have a tremendous appreciation for card magic and love to see all kinds of magic. And if you struggle with either worrying that you have too many books, you're not getting to all the material, or you just want to learn some better study habits, then check out one of these two videos that I made just for you. As always, my friends, I appreciate you watching, and until next time, keep reading.